Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss and internet shitlords. And so the last time, when my previous video, I was talking about my brand new book. It's already doing pretty good in sales, which is called Heroes and Villains of the Silk Road. And people were saying, well, why didn't you put up the book so people could see it? And I'm sure some of you know this already, but I always get my books later than most people who actually start buying them when it comes out, because it has to be shipped all the way down here. So I don't actually have that book yet, but I've got, Sword and Caravan and Social Encounters there, which are both from the same publisher and the same line. And I can guarantee you that Heroes and Villains of the Silk Road has the same fantastic production value, thanks to Mad Scribe Games. And I think that if you're running a Sword and Caravan campaign, but also if you're, running other types of fantasy campaigns that could have kind of similar thematics in different ways. And if you just are interested in learning more about history, all three of those are very good reasons to get Heroes and Villains of the Silk Road. It's full of NPCs that you can adapt to your campaign, and it's got some other stuff too. If you're running Sword and Caravan, it has an expanded timeline compared to the one that's in the main book, with a lot of adventure cues for what the PCs can be doing. And it's also got the assassin class for Lion and Dragon. So if you got Lion and Dragon and you want to add in, assassins, like the literal, Middle Eastern type assassins from the Crusades, you can pick it up for that. And it's got some high-tech Song Dynasty devices, and it's a really good product. So be sure to check it out. Anyways, today though, I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about the new 5th edition Planescape book, or I should say box set, because apparently it's coming out in a box set that has like 3 separate books in it, and it's very expensive from what I've been told. And some people have now, favored shills of WotC have received the previews of it, like they received a preview version of it to check out, and which is, I think, basically the set as it's going to be. Actually, they've just gotten early copies of it, and I'm sure that there's going to be, as more information gets out, there's going to be tons of stuff horribly wrong with this book. So, I mean, one of the things I was noticing when I was checking out, because somebody alerted me to the fact that there was a video out about it. And when I was checking it out, one of the things I noticed is this notion that there's no actual truth or something like that. It's very relativistic for a setting where what you're supposed to have is like really significant statements of belief. And I think that the factions, which was a big part of the 2nd edition Planescape, for those of you who aren't aware, like Planescape was the planar setting, the multiplanar setting for 2nd edition D&D. And it had, as one of its features, the idea that on the planes there were, and especially in Sigil, in the magical city that connected to all of the planes, that was like the main part of the setting, there were these different philosophical factions that had, basically they were constantly rivals to each other because of their ideologies and beliefs. And my glimpse at that section suggested to me, now it's been a long time since I've looked at Planescape, but I get the feeling that the factions have been significantly changed. But I guess we're going to find out. I mean, it's hard to imagine that they wouldn't be, because it's, stuff that's so utterly contraindicatory, right? The idea that there's, because the idea was that all of those factions had their own position, and those positions were all treated with like a kind of equal level of fairness, right? And I think that in our modern or postmodern world, that's unlikely to be what they're doing now, And there is some evidence to it, though, because there's one thing that was pointed out to me and that I caught on the video very, very clearly, which is in the monster book, or in the not just the monsters, but in like the book for basically the potential antagonist stuff, like like the monster manual basically, but it includes like stats for members of different types of groups. There's actually a profile for, it's not a monster, it's one of these faction groups that are called the Hands of Havoc Fire Starters. And essentially, this is literally like an Antifa terrorist. Like that's what this is literally about, right? So the Hands of Havoc Firestarter is described as pyromaniacal agents known as fire starters. And maybe that wouldn't be a bad villain to have, right? Because like obviously guys that go around burning things down for ideological fanaticism would make a good villain, but that's not what they are in the description. And I'm going to read it out like directly because I'm looking at a screen cap here. It says, the pyromaniacal agents known as fire starters burn away oppressive systems through chaos and flame. And there's a little drawing of it, and they literally wield hammers that emit magical flames for smashing and burning oppression. Okay? So these are the heroic Antifa fighters that go around, defeating oppression by creating mostly peaceful fires. Yeah. So this is what we've got as an example of the types of people that you're going to run into in this setting, and in case like you still had any doubt that maybe that was written like sarcastically or something. No, I mean, in the section, they are described as small or medium humanoids, any alignment, right? Because, obviously, we already knew that the policy for woke 5th edition is that alignment is in itself fundamentally wrong, right? Because it suggests certain both certain absolutes and certain diversity of perspective that doesn't work for these people. But so that what they've done with that is basically a vast number of creatures, essentially any creature that isn't, say, a literal demon or an undead or something like that, and maybe some of those too, are just listed now as having any alignment, because you can be a lawful good beholder, right? Like, and if you don't think there can be lawful good beholders, you're obviously a bigot and possibly a mega insurgent or something like that, right? So these Hands of Havoc Firestarters, they can perfectly well be seen as lawful good fire starters that go around burning people and things to fight their perceived oppression. There's not much else to comment about it at this time. They have multi-attacks. Their weapons are the Havoc Hammer, that if they hit and the target is a creature, the flames cling to the creature, causing it to take 1d6 fire damage at the start of its turns. If it's not a creature, it just sets things on fire or does fire damage. And then also they have Havoc Flasks, which are essentially Molotov cocktails. You guessed it, right? Like with magical flames that cling to the people that they throw these at for peace, right? It's for peace and social justice that they're throwing these flasks. Right? So this was like, because in the video they were moving pretty fast, and so it was hard to catch a lot of other details. But like I said, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more details coming out, and this has every indication that it's going to be, absolute cringe completely, and so, yeah, they're going to basically politicize Planescape so that it's, I don't know. I mean, they already did the Radiant Citadel, which was their own multiplanar setting, except all the planes were like third world countries. And, it was basically the Chaz in like, in space, right? So I'm not sure exactly what they're going to make Sigil into in comparison. But we can bet that we know for a fact now there's going to be fires of peace, right? Mostly peaceful fires are going to be taking place on Sigil. So I guess that's everything I have to say about this for the moment, but I thought I had to put this out there first thing, because it's the very first bit of news that I have for you on Planescape, and it's not good news. I was never a gigantic fan of Planescape. I always thought that having the planes be a place where low-level characters could travel around lost a lot of the purpose of the planes. Like, to me, in classic D&D play, your characters at low levels were kind of hanging around in the Wilderlands, close to the Caves of Chaos or whatever, very basic kind of dungeons. And then at mid levels, they might try, bigger challenges. And at slightly higher levels, they would be, potentially making their own domains or influencing, the fates of nations and things like that. And then the outer planes were what you went when you had nothing left to conquer on the material plane, right? And they were really, if you look at the Planar Handbook for First Edition, these were places that were really, really challenging, and that's what they were meant to be, right? They were for these epic cosmic adventures. And in some ways, to me, Planescape always just kind of made that more banal, right? It just reduced it to another basic fantasy world, So I was never a gigantic fan of it. But if you were a gigantic fan of Planescape, and I know that there were a lot of people who were, there were a lot of people who liked the kind of edgy language of it. It was they had cribbed a lot from both World of Darkness and Shadowrun. So it was the city of Sigil was in a way kind of a fantasy cyberpunk setting in some sense. And if you liked that, you're probably going to be as disappointed as Spelljammer fans were with Spelljammer, and Dragonlance fans were with Dragonlance, and Ravenloft fans were with Ravenloft. I mean, at this point, none of that should surprise you. Anyone who was betting that this was going to be a great book or a great product was really not paying attention. That's basically everything I have to say about it. So yeah, keep in touch for more news on that as more comes out, and I'm sure more will be very soon because, like I said, this stuff is already starting to go around. And if you like this video, please share it anywhere you think people will find it interesting or anywhere that people are going to be pissed off. And if you want to support me, check out all my products, right? Heroes and Villains of the Silk Road, my brand new book that's out, but also, Lion and Dragon, Sword and Caravan, The Invisible College. If you like extra planar stuff, you can check out the Gonzo Fantasy Companion, where I have stuff on creating alternate material planes and pocket planes and stuff like that. Or in the old school Companion 1, if you want fantasy stuff, there's, the Twilight Realms of the Fae, the fairyland as it was depicted in the medieval myths and legends. And that's well worth checking out. Or Star Adventurer, or any of my other products. The links are all going to be in the description below. You just click that little more expander there, and you'll see all of the links to my stuff. And be sure to check it out. And a big thank you to everybody who's already picked up Heroes and Villains, as well as everybody who buys all of my stuff. I'm always very grateful, and I really appreciate it. And that's everything for today. Currently smoking this is a Moretti Rhodesian plus Argento Bologna.